Hello, good morning everyone. In this tutorial, I'm going to explain you how can you use Node.js and connect to a MySQL database. So here we are having a MySQL database running inside a Docker container. You're going to install the Node modules. So the necessary Node modules you're going to install. Then you're going to connect to the database. Then you're going to create a database inside the MySQL server, create a table, insert data into the table, delete rows. So you're going to do all those CRUD operations inside the MySQL database using Node.js. So let me explain you a little bit about the environment, what I have. Okay, I have a base Windows 10 machine. So I have a base Windows 10 machine. We call that as a host machine. Okay, then I have a MySQL DB running inside a Docker container. So I have a Docker. Inside that we have a MySQL DB. So the Docker is running inside a CentOS virtual machine. So I have a CentOS 7 VM, which is nothing but a Linux. Inside Linux, I have a Docker container running and I have a MySQL DB running. So the MySQL database connects to the port or liaisons onto the port 3306. Essentially, it liaisons on the port inside the Docker container 3306. But I do all the port forward from Docker container to virtual machine, then virtual machine to the host Windows machine. Then I have Node.js runtime. So I have a Node.js runtime, which connects to the database So if you want to connect to the database, you need to have username. So the username which I use is root, and you need password, and which is like admin, and a port on which DB is listening. The port is 3306. These are the information you need. So this is the architecture which I have for this tutorial. So let me go back to uh, my GitHub repository and explain you what I have. So the entire source code for this tutorial is available in this GitHub repository. Okay, balajich node.js.mysql. You can find it there. So you can clone this repository, and you have the entire pack of things. So you can run MySQL inside a Docker, and you can use Node.js and connect to the database. So without wasting much time, let me show you this. So I just cloned my repository into the folder called Node.js MySQL. If you see here, I have a directory called server. So go to the server directory. In the server directory, I have a Vagrant file. I use Vagrant to bring the virtual machine up. In the architecture I said to you, right? I run a virtual machine, CentOS, where I run Docker and MySQL DB. So the server has a Vagrant file which brings that virtual machine up. So the simple way I already have the virtual machine running. I just do Vagrant SSH. I take SSH to the CentOS 7 machine and bring the Docker container up. So I'm there, and I'll switch to root. Now I'm in the root cd vagrant. So if you see, there is a Docker compose file. From here, we are going to start the MySQL server. So docker -compose up -d. So this Docker compose is going to bring the MySQL server up, and -d, it's run it in a background or detached mode. So if I press enter, you can see that the MySQL server is up and it is running under a detached mode. If you, there is, I'll slightly walk you through the Docker Compose file as well. So if I show you inside the server, you have this Docker Compose file. So the Docker Compose file is, this is, this describes, we have two services. One is like we have a database and another one is volumes. So what here we have is we have a persistence volume. When you stop and start the Docker container, the MySQL server, you are going to note, we are not going to lose any data in the MySQL server. So if I show it to you now, we are going to have a persistent volume. So if you say Docker volume ls, here you can see that there is a separate volume. Volume is nothing but the persistence file system for the MySQL server. The database is going to listen into this. So generally it will be available in var lib docker volumes. If you see here, there is an MySQL DB volume. So slightly I dwelled a little bit deep into the Docker, but what you have to understand in a nutshell is if you stop and start the server, the database is going to be persistent. Whatever you are going to create in the database, it is persistent. Now, let me go to Docker Compose file. Do remember, if any command you run on Docker Compose, you need to have run it in a Docker Compose file, that in a directory where you have Docker Compose file. So here I'm running under a folder /vagrant, which has Docker Compose file. Now Docker -compose -ps. If you see, there is a MySQL process which is running and binded to the port 33060. So it is binded to the port 3306 on the host. Now let us connect to the database what we have using MySQL Workbench. So I'm using a MySQL Workbench and connecting to the database. Now here you can see that we connect to the database. The username and password, as I discussed, right, it uses root and admin as a password. So I connected with root and admin as a password. There are no tables created or nothing is there. There is no database created. So now let us create one small database called company using Node.js. So do remember, when you are using Node.js, you need to install the MySQL module. So if you go through my README, so you need to install npm install MySQL. This will install necessary node modules. So if you see that these are the node modules necessary to connect to the MySQL database. Now let us do a few operations. Let me open a new terminal. Let the old terminal be there, which is nothing but the Docker, which is nothing but the CentOS mission terminal. So now let me run node. I have one script which will connect to the database. So this is like successfully connect to the database, 0_db connection.js. Let me open this script and explain you. So the database is running on the local host and it is using root and password as an admin. And it is running on the default port. So you need not to give, we bind it to default MySQL port 3306. So that's the reason we are able to connect to the database. Now we connected to the database. Let me create one DB. So I have a script called create DB. I created a database called company database. So if you see, create database company DB. I created one database called company DB. If you go ahead and do a refresh, here you can see that there is a company DB, but there are no tables inside the database. Let me run one more script to create tables. Node create tables. If you see, the tables got created. If you see, there is a table got created, which is an empty table, which has two columns, name and address, name of the company and address of the company, two columns, nothing more great about it. If you see, this is what a varchar name and address. The syntax is easy to get on. Now let me insert eh, data into the table. So I'm inserting a one row. If you see, now select rows. Here I can see I installed Facebook name and address is one hacker way in Palo Alto. So I created one row. Now let me do a select query. So node 5, the same thing, it queried the table and it displayed the result. So if you see this is like select star from customers. It queried the database and the results are shown back. Now let me go back to the Docker and stop the MySQL DB and see the behavior. So I'm into the host machine. Sorry, I'm into the guest machine which has the MySQL DB running. So I'm at a place. Now I'll stop Docker compose stop. I stopped the MySQL database. And if I do a refresh, it shows that error connection lost. They cannot connect to the DB. Now Docker -compose start. So it's going to start the DB. If I do a refresh, the database, so the database is persisted. So generally people fear that, okay, when you run something in a Docker, when you restarted the container, then the whole data is lost. Because we have persistence volume, that's the reason the data is not lost. So here you can see, like, we have select query we ran and there is a table in it. So this is how you can play with the DB. If you want, you can drop the data. If you want, you can drop the table, you can drop the database, anything. So let me run a script to drop the table. So deleted all the records. Now if you do a refresh all, and if you select records, I think I didn't committed it. Okay, so that's the reason you are not seeing this. Now if you want to, now let us do a tear down of the database. Now we create the database. Now let us try to delete the database and delete the MySQL server as well. The simple way to do that is go into your Docker compose. Docker-compose down. Remember, it is down, not stop. -v. So it is going to stop the MySQL server and delete the volumes also. So if you see now, the MySQL database is stopped and its volumes are also deleted. So if you do a refresh, it's nothing. There is no database, there is no data, nothing inside. So if you want to bring once again the database, Docker composer start, Docker compose up -d. If you run this command, creates the MySQL server with the default and run it in a detached mode. If you see, if I run, let me connect, and it doesn't have anything. It's like an empty database without the customer DB. So this is how you can run a MySQL server in a Docker, then use Node.js to connect then fire query, define results. This is all for your development environment at one place. So the goal of this tutorial is like, you need not to install MySQL database separately and stuff. So it's very easy. All you need is like a vagrant to bring the server up, the MySQL, the host CentOS mission, and you can use Docker to run the MySQL server. Or if you don't want the CentOS mission to up, you can use my simple Docker compose and you can run the Docker compose up -d command to bring the MySQL server up. So with that, I end my tutorial. Hope uh, you you might like the tutorial. Thank you very much.